Good evening, everybody. This is Gerudo King. Just wanted to do a smaller reading here today. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, so I'm actually very glad that I'm not reading something for too long today. I don't know what came over me. Monday night, I think, is really where it started. I did a workout with Amaris. It was one of the first workouts we'd done in a while, so that took a lot out of me already. You mix that with not feeling already up to par, I'd say. I had a terrible stuffy nose and everything, so I'm just nursing through. And like I said, I'll just do a short one today. There's a small concordance study that these guys did. I'll follow this up. I'll compensate. Don't worry. I'll follow it up with a longer reading tomorrow. But this one's short. It's like 4 pages, something like that. Let me check. Yeah, 4 pages here, so nothing big. Okay, I'll just get right into it. Hey, Chris, bruh indeed. Okay, believers or faithful. Paul's epistles are especially concerned with transcendence. This rare word describes the love of Christ, Ephesians 3:19, and the greatness of God's power and the riches of his grace, Ephesians 2:7, in the Ephesian epistle. This is, to a large extent, nullified in the introduction to this letter, as translated in the Authorized Version. There, the epistle is translated or addressed to the faithful, as though it were restricted to those saints which were obedient, in contrast to others who had believed but had not obeyed. Anything the Christians will do to change the meaning, that general thought of a word. So, according to this, the Ephesian epistle is not even based on grace, far less on transcendent grace, right, but obedience. The word faithful ought to mean full of faith. Indeed, this is what it did denote in early English, but as men full of faith were also firm in the performance of duties growing out of it, it gradually took on this figurative usage. The result was implied in some contexts, so that a word meaning faith took on the sense which also called for works. Now, although it still retains the word faith in its makeup, faithful may be used where no belief at all is involved. Even the Authorized Version, our King James, recognizes that the basic meaning of this word is pistos, from the verb pistero, believe, is believing. Speaking of Thomas, they say, be not faithless, but believing. John 20:27. Again, what part has he that believeth with an infidel? 2 Corinthians 6:15. Quote, God is the Savior of all men, especially of those that believe. 1 Timothy 4:10. Also, be thou an example of the believers. 1 Timothy 4:12. And they that have believing masters, 1 Timothy 6:2. In these contexts, the translators could not very well put their usual rendering, faithful. Had they understood the transcendent grace of Ephesians and Colossians, they would surely not have translated these letters as addressed to the faithful, but rather to the believing brethren, Ephesians 1:1 and Colossians 1:2. This is one concordant method or principle which is none too well understood, so we will enlarge upon it as an example to show the extreme importance and vast advantage of translating and interpreting in accord with the whole context. We must translate the opening words of Paul's Ephesian epistle in line with the character of its contents. Is the transcendent grace it unfolds for faith, or only for the faithful, the obedient, whose good deeds demand the reward of every spiritual blessing among the celestials? The answer is clear. In grace are you saved through faith, not faithfulness. And this is not out of you. It is God's oblation or God's approach present, not of works, lest anyone should be boasting. Ephesians 2, verses 8 and 9. His achievement are we, not our own. Seeing that the epistle is so saturated with grace transcendent, how discordant, how contradictory it is to address it only to the faithful. Standing, as it does, at the very entrance to the epistle, this word closes the door to the very ones for whom it was written, for they are well aware that nothing is due them on the ground of works, because of their own faithfulness. It may also have the deplorable effect of bolstering our pride if we take the high honors it imparts as ours due to the superior knowledge of faith or faithfulness, and so defeat its purpose and final effect, which is to exclude all boasting. Grace and glorying in ourselves are incompatible. Grace companies with humility and meekness. We used to say, in regard to the interpretation of any book of the Bible, the key lies at the door. So it is with the four accounts of our Lord's life. The opening paragraph indicates the character of each, and this is maintained throughout. So it is with the epistles to the circumcision. For example, Peter writes to the dispersion. Hebrews is written to those whose forefathers heard the prophets, and it is especially helpful in Paul's epistles to the uncircumcision. How unfortunate to be misled by a false key, which does not fit the lock of the very highest and most vital of them all. A key is a very small object compared with the house, but how important it becomes if you are locked out. So this very insignificant word, faithful, must be replaced by believing if we are to enter into the Ephesian letter and enjoy its vast spiritual riches. And if you're looking at this and you're wondering, like, I don't really see the distinction, I don't really care, keep in mind you're looking at this from the 2026 perspective. This was written in, I don't know, at least 60 years ago. It must be understood these two words are not the same, but not because, like, in a literal sense, you could use it the same way today. But it's not just about what these words are, it's about what each concept represents in relation to popular Christianity and how popular Christianity likes to change the context of things and change the meaning of things, so that faithful becomes about faith and works, and they work James right into the front of Ephesians. And you could say, well, some people could do that with believing and make that an action, and yeah, maybe that's true. But the point isn't to show that there's only one way that you can read this. If you read it faithful, you're doing God a disservice or something. But that the principal thought in mind should be faith that is not out of you, and it is for that faith which all the blessings of Ephesians 1-3 are applied, not the idea that you have to obey in order for these blessings to become available to you, right? So hopefully that helps a little bit. Anyway, such contextual concordance plays a large part in the restoration of the Hebrew text. About half of it is written as poetry, with many parallelisms, in which two lines express a similar or contrastive idea by the use of synonyms or antonyms. Occasionally, one or more of the words used are out of line, so that the flow of thought is disturbed or contradicted. An examination of the Hebrew original will often show that a word which looks like the proper one has been mistaken for it. If the Septuagint, the earliest Greek version, also indicates the proper word, we restore it and so attain contextual concordance. Usually this is so obviously right that everyone would accept it as correct. Nevertheless, we mark it plainly to show the evidence on which it is based. There is a strong tendency to use the reverse of this method to reason from single words to large contexts or whole epistles. Once we were tempted to judge an epistle by the number of occurrences of characteristic words. We would have concluded that those to whom Paul's epistles are addressed are under law, because he uses the term much oftener than any other writer. We never did this, of course, for it was all too evident that the context contradicted the idea. A word may be changed to the opposite by a negative, as in, not under law does not denote under law. More than this, the usage of a word may modify its meaning considerably, so that we should always keep it in its context in our search after truth, and so avoid false inferences and incorrect conclusions. Many of the minor differences in doctrine which shame and humble those of us who have God's truth at heart can be readily resolved by contextual concordance, especially when united to verbal concordance. If all use the closest English expression as determined by all of its context elsewhere, and test this by the contents of the book or the section in which it appears, the probability of seeing eye to eye are vastly increased. In the glory, we will all agree because we will all see and enjoy the ineffable harmony that exists in God's revelation, much of which many overlook in this life. Meanwhile, we shall do our best to remove the discords which have intruded into man's versions of God's inspired original. A. Enoch. Great. That was a fun line. I'm going to read this. Religion causes contention. It's kind of an attention grabber. India is reminding us today that political discord is by no means the most potent source of division. That is true. So far as government is concerned, it is probable that Pakistan could cooperate with Hindustan, especially under influence of their new freedom. But Mohammedan and Hindu minorities have little confidence in the promise of religious freedom, so they are leaving their homes in order to be with their co-religionists. There is much rioting and bloodshed. Such contention is not new. Europe, for many years, was scourged by wars between Catholics and Protestants. Yep, split whole countries over that. I think Ireland was part of that. To this day, Ulster cannot be won with ire on their tiny island, mostly on religious grounds. So it will be at the end of the Sion. Already the Christian world is thinking of starting a holy war against atheism and forcing its peace program upon the heathen nations. By its military strength, it will seek to make one world of the two or more which now seek the preeminence. If they cannot have peace otherwise, they will fight for it. It's interesting. I would love the historical context for this first paragraph. If anyone can find that. I am not as familiar with the religious history of India, so it'd be interesting to learn. Anyways, that's all I got. Like I said, small but important inferences that shouldn't be ignored, right? Going into this, so it's great. Enjoying my immaturity, says Sean. Well, that makes two of us. It's good to see you guys. Like I said, I'm not feeling too well, so I won't be here too long today. But yeah, I don't know if I can repeat that without getting banned by mommy YouTube, but whatever. Yeah, I should, Lord willing, be able to come back tomorrow. I have a much juicier study for you guys. It's called A Unique Treasure Chest, and it's the study is called The Place of Humanity in God's Purpose. It's a 3-part study, So you're in for something good because 3 parts. It's pretty amazing. The initials of the guy who does it is JHE. And I do not know what that name is in the slightest. I wish I did. but I do not. Anyways, it's going to be a little over 20 pages, so we've got plenty tomorrow to look forward to, and we'll cross that line when we get there. But till then, grace and peace, Tony. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I hope so too. I hate when one of your nostrils stops working and you realize how important breathing is. And thank you to as well, Chris. The missus is actually out. Her phone screen suddenly went black and it started like heating up really fast. So that's nerve wracking. And and I said, "Oh shoot!" And I'd be with her right now, but I had to go live. So okay, we'll call it here. Grace and peace, guys. Catch you tomorrow.